community, our first responders, and all the folks that are contributing to this effort. Over the last 48 hours or so, by our estimates, we've lost upwards of 700 structures. Had aerial flyovers this morning and last night late to validate some of those losses, but there's still large question marks about the total loss. It's very difficult to try to figure that out in this day and age. We have flights that will go over it with satellites today to try to validate an additional 1,100 areas that are question marks about damage and loss to either structures or outbuildings, both residential and commercial within the fire's footprints. I would like to start by thanking the region for the amount of support that we've received as a team. The community support has been incredible. The support from the governor's office, the local fire chiefs, the sheriff, and the city police chief have been extraordinary. It's rare that we come into a community like this and have the types of relationships that have been established to meet the mission. Next week or so are going to be extremely difficult as we start to grasp the overwhelming amount of damage that has been done in this community and try to turn the corner and help you recover. It's going to take a lot of effort, a lot of coordination, and a lot of patience, frankly. Our expectation is over the next few days, as we receive resources from all over the country, that we place them in the most affected neighborhoods. We meet the need of the community. We meet the need of the individuals that live here, that work here, that raise kids here. That's our expectation. I want to go ahead and introduce the governor, the state of Washington, Governor Ferguson, and I want to thank him too for the overwhelming amount of support that the team has received over the last few days and our efforts to try to make this unbelievable tragedy a little bit more tolerable. Governor.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for being here. I have a brief update before I get to that. Just again want to reiterate that our hearts are with everybody who's been impacted by this, nightmare situation. I think, Mayor, you'd mentioned that I think from a historical standpoint, this is likely, the worst natural disaster in Spokane's history. When you're dealing with the scale of devastation that is historical, the impact on people's lives is truly profound. I'm deeply appreciative for all the first responders. We were having a briefing in this room not long ago, and there are first responders in that room who have been evacuated from their homes, and yet they're still out there dealing with this situation and helping their neighbors here dealing with this challenging situation. So we're deeply grateful, of course, to them. I do want to also echo the coordination. We deeply appreciate that. Every level that is, I think the people expect that, and I want people to know they're getting that is full cooperation from every level of government to do the best we possibly can. I'll speak briefly to one of those levels of cooperation. That's with the federal government. So as you know, when I mentioned yesterday, the state, I made a request for an emergency declaration and direct federal assistance from the federal government. So that happened yesterday afternoon. There was a meeting this morning at 9 a.m. Between the state and FEMA representatives, a coordination call. We have not received word yet if that's been granted, but we anticipate it will be. But FEMA made clear they are already moving resources into the state in preparation of potentially granting that request. So just want to be clear, the federal government's not waiting around for a decision. They are, as we speak, moving resources into Washington state in anticipation of that potentially being granted. I want to reiterate, I deeply appreciate, I've received a lot of outreach from the federal government and appreciate that and that concern and hope that request is granted very, very soon. Obviously, we'll update you immediately if and when we receive that. I do want to just briefly update that request for direct federal assistance and a granting of emergency. That pertains not just to Spokane. So it's multiple counties and 3 tribes. And I don't think I mentioned that yesterday, and so I'm going to read those off now. So the 6 counties we are requesting that declaration of emergency and that direct federal assistance, this is in the short term, are the following counties: Spokane, Stevens, Chelan, Okanagan, Yakima, and Ferry. Spokane, Stevens, Chelan, Okanagan, Yakima, and Ferry. And 3 tribal nations, Spokane, Colville, and Yakima. I'll be leaving from here to actually meet with leadership from the Colville Nation, so that we understand that this fire is impacting many, many communities across our state. And that's why that request includes those 6 counties and those 3 tribes. And just to reiterate what I think I mentioned yesterday, the type of direct federal assistance would include search and rescue, debris removal, medical supplies and assistance, temporary sheltering, emergency power. So, for example, generators. Those are the types of direct assistance that we're requesting from the federal government for those jurisdictions and those tribes. Thank you very much. And I'm going to turn, I believe, to Mayor Brown. And the mayor, is just truly appreciate her leadership during an extraordinarily challenging time for her city. Mayor Brown.
Thanks. I'm going to stand here. Thank you, Governor. I have basically three words for everybody. It's gratitude, it's patience, and it's hope. So gratitude. I am being pinged constantly. I just want everyone in this room, out of the room. The people of this region really understand and appreciate what you're doing. You're putting your lives on the line. You're working day and night. You're coordinating at the EOCs. You're providing relief, and that is something we will never forget, and we are very, very grateful for. So thank you. Thank you to the governor for being here, and our Commissioner of Public Lands. Thank you in particular for the cooperation. Don't take for granted how well fire chiefs and police chiefs across all these jurisdictional boundaries are working together. It is truly something that we can be proud of as a region. Second is patience. I know people want to have certainty about when can I get back to my property, when can I get back to my home. We don't have it. We pushed, and it was made very, very clear, and I trust the folks in this room. We don't know. It's neighborhood by neighborhood and block by block, and so we really want you to pay attention. They are regularly reevaluating the situation, the weather, the fire, and the potential for things to reignite. They're regularly reevaluating that, and will issue any changes whenever they have that information that makes it safe to do so, and on a daily basis. But that doesn't mean that we can give you an estimate. It could be a week, it could be weeks, depending on where your home and property is. And so we just are really asking people, be patient. Just because you see someone on a social media post that got to go back, you think, okay, they did. Please listen to these professionals and the work that they are doing to keep us all safe. And then finally, hope. The recovery starts as soon as the fire starts, right? We have the Red Cross here with us. We have organized sites where people can make contributions at the city and the county. Our local foundations like Inovia, we just really encourage people that want to help out. We want you to help out, and we want you to use those official channels to do that. And also kind of hang in there with us, because these needs are not going to go away immediately. It's really going to be a long-term process of recovery, but it's already started. We're all pulling together. We're all going to be part of it, and that's where the hope is. And I just want to thank you, Governor, for the leadership that's been provided, and honestly for the leadership of every single individual in this room.
All right, go back to the Heights vertically challenged microphone here. Okay, again, Major General Jet Welsh, Washington State's Adjutant General. Just a brief comment. So I'll just say I went out for a drive last night, and I went up into a lot of the burned areas. And I want to tell you, I've been to a lot of places around the world, not so good places around the world, and I can tell you today that that's a war zone. When you finally get in there and you finally look at the devastation and the damage, and it's going to be pretty interesting as people go in there and to just grapple with the damage and grapple with the fact that their lives are forever changed. Some of these folks may not recover. Some of those folks may not rebuild in there. And it's going to continue to be, I would say, a very significant emotional event for the community long term. Again, we're still in the fight. There's still a lot of stuff smoking. There's still a lot of danger. There's going to be a lot of questions about when can we get back. It's going to take some time. You heard the state leadership talk about patience. It's going to take some patience. So let me just take a moment and step back and just sort of talk a little bit about where the state is at. The governor hit some of the points, some of the very specific actions that we're taking with respect to FEMA. And a lot of that stuff is breathtakingly fast. It's moving at a pace that generally the system doesn't move at. But for those that don't know, we have an organization within the Washington Military Department called the Emergency Management Division. So really since June, our Emergency Management Division has activated the State Emergency Operations Center, and that is a center over at Camp Murray that brings together over 300 people from across 15 different state agencies. That system has been activated really since June, and it's only because it started from a pretty good jog pace that it's able to get in and help adjudicate these resources. At the National Guard level, we have the Joint Operations Center at Camp Murray. That's the nerve center, bringing in all of our National Guard team that helps us plan and forward deploy all the National Guard folks that are out there. And these are folks that you're not necessarily seeing in Spokane. They're the 3 helicopters that are up in Deer Park. It's the 110 firefighters that are out on the Little Giant Fire in Plain. It's the 2 additional helicopters. As we scrubbed our entire list of aviation assets, we freed up an additional CH-47, a twin rotor helicopter that dumps a lot of water at once, and another UH-60 Blackhawk helicopter to be staged out of the Wenatchee area. Again, I want to make sure, yes, we are focused on Spokane, but we are also focused on the number of other complex issues and catastrophes occurring across the state of Washington. I'm going to close with this. The Washington National Guard still has resources available for tasking in the Spokane area. So again, to the community members, to the elected leaders here, to the officials here, use us. We are in, put us in, coach. We've got a lot of things we can do, but we have to wait until we're asked. The last thing you want in this community is the National Guard rolling around uninvited. So please ask us, and we're ready to chip in and continue to help this community recover. Thank you, and I'm followed by the county leadership.
Hello, I'm Spokane County Commissioner Josh Kearns. I'll keep my remarks short. I just want to encourage folks, please do not be flying drones near any of these fires or the areas that have been burned. The FAA has put in new flight restrictions. Please do not fly drones. When drones are in the air, that means the aerial assets that are helping fight the fire cannot be in the air. Please do not fly drones. Also, please respect the evacuation areas. Those are in place for your safety. We know individuals are going back in to look at the damage. It is very dangerous. As it's been stated already, these wildfires are very unpredictable. We don't know where they're going to go next. We don't know if things are going to restart. Hotspot. It is very dangerous. Please be safe. Please prioritize your health and your safety. And then I would also just like to thank everybody that's been involved. Thank you to all of our first responders, our law enforcement, our firefighters, those that are come to our area to help put out these fires. Big shout out to the Red Cross and the Public Facilities District for opening up the convention center for the evacuation center. I am told they still have capacity at the convention center. They can flex that space up to 120,000 square feet if needed. So please, if you know folks that need to access that, tell them there is capacity, and the convention center is still open for those needs. Thank you.
Okay, folks, we have just a few minutes for questions. The governor's on an extremely tight schedule, so we have just about 5-10 minutes for questions.
Governor, you mentioned that those resources from FEMA are on the way. What are they, and how do you think they will help at this point?
Yeah, so I believe I listed the type of things that we are requesting, right? Search and rescue, debris removal, sheltering for housing, right, on a short-term basis. So at the 9 a.m. call, when I received a briefing from that, FEMA made it clear they weren't waiting for the approval because it takes some time to logistically get those resources here. They've already started that process to literally move those resources to Washington State, presumably pending an approval, obviously. So we anticipate that that will be approved. A similar request was granted for the flood situation we had in December. But what I appreciate is the federal government's not waiting around for the logistics of getting it approved. They're literally moving those resources in. And so we made a broad request for everything we heard from local jurisdictions of what they need. So what we put into that request is based completely on what we hear from local leadership. Here's what we need, Governor, to request from the federal government. That's what goes into our request. And that request was made yesterday, I think I was on a call with them at like 1:30 yesterday afternoon. And so they have all the information they need. And just want to emphasize, we appreciate how quickly FEMA has moved so far. I think the general reference, it's fast, and we're hoping for an approval very soon.
Do you have an update on how many people are unaccounted for, or do you feel like you still?
I'm going to turn to the local folks on that. I'm so sorry. Sorry about that. Apologies.
So as I mentioned yesterday, and I'm speaking for Spokane County, the unincorporated sections of these affected fires, we had about 290 911 calls, broad ranges, not necessarily missing persons, of people we felt we should try to locate. We got through all but 14 of them yesterday. We were able to locate people by phone. I do not want people to think that we have 14 missing people. These are people who may have called for help or for help evacuating, and many of them likely did get evacuated. With poor cell phone coverage, people's cell phone batteries die, or they get to some place where they do find shelter, and we haven't been able to reach them by phone. So that's the task for, at least in Spokane County, for those 14 people that we haven't just been able to talk to in person. So I don't want to qualify them as missing people. They're people we're just trying to confirm are fine. So, and again, what we're asking the public is, if you know people who are living in these affected areas, and you haven't been able to contact them, and maybe you haven't reported them as missing, make sure you call Crime Check at 509-456-2233 and make a missing persons report. And both the city of Spokane and the Spokane County Sheriff's Office have people dedicated to working those cases.
Apologies for the confusion. Dave Up the Grove, Public Lands Commissioner, had a few words he wanted to say, and then we'll resume the Q&A. Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. I am interested in speaking briefly to put this in context with everything that's happening in the state right now. My name is Dave Up the Grove. I am our state's elected Commissioner of Public Lands, where I serve as Director of the State Department of Natural Resources, the agency responsible for wildland fire response. This is an extraordinary fire season. This is going to shape up to be a historic fire season in Washington State and the Pacific Northwest. Today, there are 17 major fires burning in Washington State, covering 262,000 acres currently on fire. And we are nearing 500,000 acres burned this summer in Washington, and it's in early August. Fortunately, we've prepared. We pre-positioned equipment. We've trained a world-class firefighting force. We have the mutual aid agreements in place. And I want to express my thanks for the complex incident management team. I think we had a team this fire as fast as I've ever seen, and some of the best professionals in the nation. I also have been so impressed with the local fire districts, as well as the city and county emergency response agencies. They are the first on the scene, and they're working collaboratively. And I just want to keep in mind that we have 5,000 people out there fighting these fires in this state right now. And so behind every one of these images we see that's so devastating, there is a young firefighter running into the woods, putting their lives on the line. And we should feel really proud of our responders and all of the people who support them. And that's what gives me hope, even in a time of tragedy like this, the degree to which everyone is working together and pulling in one direction, with a simple mission to keep all of us safe. And the state is proud to be a partner in that. With that, I will turn it back over for questions.
We've heard reports of armed looters. Can anybody speak to whether or not there are armed looters going through these fires in Spokane County?
I can speak to the city. We've had multiple reports. We've unfounded each and every report that's come into the city, and we've responded. We have both National Guard city police and deputies working together in collaboration to protect everybody's property. And we will continue to do so, and we're using a host of different tools, technology to assist us in that effort. So at this point, no founded reports of looting or property theft.
Thank you. Can anything be done for infrastructure in Spokane? People on 5 Mile complaining there's only so many ways off the hill, creates traffic when it's time to evacuate. Can anybody speak to that?
You know, this is something that we dealt with on Saturday while these incidents were actively moving. I think the estimate is potentially up to 65,000 people we had to move out of these areas. And if you think about what that entails, the fact that we were able to get people out of those areas within several hours in an active fire zone is pretty incredible. I think as things go on and we debrief how this works, sure, there are always questions about how could we do it better. And so I know those conversations will occur, but I need people to focus on the fact that we moved that many people out of an affected area within a couple of hours. That's pretty incredible. Okay, I don't know how many specific missing persons reports have come in. I just know that we had 290 various types of 911 calls that we proactively said these might be people we need to start looking for and get eyes on. I have not had an update since yesterday about how many actual missing person reports have come in. To be on the chief's coattails about the looting. We have had reports of looters. We did make an arrest late Saturday afternoon, but not for looting. It was people who were suspicious. They had no reason to be up in the area. They had active arrest warrants, so they were taken into custody, but it was not for looting. And we have no reports of any armed looters that I'm aware of. So.
Was that on Francis? We heard reports of people being arrested on Francis.
I don't believe that arrest was on Francis, no.
Governor, it sounds like resources are already mobilizing on a national level. Any timeline on when those resources could potentially be approved and when they could arrive?
So as I said before, I don't control when the federal government makes their decision, right? So that could be today, it could be tomorrow, right? I can't give you a specific answer because I don't make that decision. What I can say is, and this is based on previous experience with the historic flooding we had, we went through a very similar experience of making the request, is I can only be thankful for how quickly FEMA has responded, how quickly they met with me, how quickly they took in the request. There's a lot that goes into this, just want to be clear. And having that meeting this morning where they're already moving resources into the state, it's my understanding some resources are literally already in the state. I don't have more details on that yet. I'll need to have another call with my team to get that. But my understanding is things are staged here literally in Washington state already on many of the resources I've talked about. So it's up to the federal government. But from President Trump to Secretary Mullen to FEMA, we've had only productive conversations and responsive conversations. And so I'm very optimistic that they will grant it, and hopefully very soon. Thanks.
There was an update in the number of structures destroyed and an update on containment this morning.
Also, the number of structures, was the 700 all in, among all the fires or specifically in one of the fires?
So total structure loss that we have now, the numbers that we have now are just over 700. However, we have at the perimeters of all three fires are questions about is that burned vegetation or structures? And this is because our imagery is coming from satellites. We've had a flight this morning at 9 a.m. We have a flight this afternoon. We have aerial supervision over the area during the afternoon. And the goal is to get to your question to find out exactly what is burned. Simultaneously, there are multiple crews in neighborhoods today that are going house by house, structure by structure, and putting on a virtual map indicating where the burned homes are, where the losses are. It's going to take a few days to get solid numbers just because of the complexity, the volume of loss, the geography, and our priority right now is we have a firefight going on, and we're taking care of that right now. We're going to prioritize life and property first, and then we're going to work into the damage assessment component of this incident.
And then just to clarify, when you say 1,100 question marks, you're trying to figure out if there are 1,100 additional structures, and that's the estimate?
We somewhere between 700 and 1,100 is the question mark right now. And I want to be very, very clear. These numbers are preliminary, and this is a complicated, complex process of determining total structure loss. And so, as part of that, we are very vague with purpose until we can figure out exactly what's done. To us, the right way to do this is with boots on the ground that are actually looking at every single building, outbuilding, shop, home, commercial structure to validate the total numbers.
Can you speak to what you are seeing here and how that compares to what you've dealt with in California and anything that is overlapping that has helped you in your response here?
Yeah. Unfortunately, California has been an area where we've seen enormous destruction by wind-driven urban interface fires that turn into urban conflagrations. And that's what we witnessed here. Not uncommon, unfortunately, in the last few years. What I do see that has been extraordinarily helpful to this incident is the level of cooperation and coordination that already exists on the ground. And that our team was notified of this incident at 3 o'clock just 2 days ago. And we were here within 4 hours. We were in Northern Oregon. And the ability for the machine to move at that rate is really unprecedented. As part of that, the resources that we need, the cooperation that we need to be effective has all been present. And so that is it's a similarity to what we see in California, and certainly a similarity to what we've experienced here. As I said in my first opening statement, the level of cooperation, coordination has been unprecedented in this community.
Where can people who need help right now or money right now? If folks have evacuated from their home, they should seek shelter at one of the many shelters across the state of Washington, specifically here in Spokane. That is at the Spokane Convention Center, where the Red Cross is working with many partners to make sure that people have their immediate needs tended to. So a safe roof over their head, warm meals in their belly, health and mental health support. And right now it really is about making sure that people have a safe place to go, and we'll be layering in additional resources as we move forward and assess the very specific needs.
There are a lot of people who want to help but don't have the money to do so. What can they do?
Sure, well, we're not the only organization in town, but we are an organization that loves volunteers. So redcross.org and volunteer or donate blood.
Governor, I have a long-term housing
Can I
question.
just add something to that? We are also, we have the Second Harvest Food can take non-perishable food, and also volunteers. Also, we welcome, if people have cash donations to make, we welcome that. The county, Novia Foundation, the city website, please utilize trusted resources for that. We know people want to give clothing donations as well. I believe you're saying not right now at the convention center, that it's an issue of capacity for handling that material. So stay tuned and look at our websites where we continue to update places where people can help. I want to just acknowledge in this region also, we have a lot of faith communities that are engaging in their efforts. So look to your faith community, look to your civic organization. Be skeptical of just something that pops up on the internet, and stick with the trusted community organizations and faith communities that you are familiar with.
Question about, obviously, Washington has been in a housing shortage. Now we're talking hundreds of homes lost. It's just going to make it worse. What can the state do? What are you planning to do? I know it's really early, but anything.
Yeah, so you're right. It's early from the standpoint of hey, folks have lost everything in terms of their homes, but we're already having conversations on our end as folks deal with the immediate crisis, right, of getting people safe and secure and stable. But we're already having conversations about what we could do from the housing front more generally. As you might imagine, the focus is, temporary shelter. That's why we got that request to FEMA, right? We're making sure folks' needs are being taken care of right now. But one thing that on the scale of this one of what seems to be hundreds and hundreds of homes and neighborhoods a very short distance from here, yes, of course, the state will be doing everything we can to be a partner with folks at the local level as well, from nonprofits, from private partners, to see what we can do to help folks who literally will have to rebuild.
There's been a lot of misinformation online. I've seen especially some fake photos of aerial shots. What sort of, how should people protect themselves from getting misinformation, and what misinformation has been prominent?
Well, it's interesting, and it's just like any information we consume online. Go to trusted sources, and know that there are people out there putting out information that is not accurate and not true, and people are putting a lot of opinions out there online and what they see. And the reality of it is go to trusted news organizations that you know. Look to official media channels like websites from the county, the city, the state, the federal government. We are going to give you information that is accurate and true. There is a lot of speculation about any number of things that you'll see online, and you should probably be suspicious of a lot of it. And if it's too good to be true or sparks significant emotion, it's probably not accurate. I'll be honest, I have stayed offline for 3 or 4 days, and as a general rule.
Do we know anything about the cause of any of these fires? Do we know if they were human started?
I can say that we are investigating the cause and origin of all of these fires, and we are actively investigating those at this time. Again, we have no known or reported fatalities in this incident, which is great, and we hope it stays that way.
Can you talk about the process of investigating? How does that work?
It's complicated because every situation is different. Are you talking about investigating missing persons, or so we're working hand in hand with arson investigators and fire investigators, not necessarily just arson, right? To determine how these fires may have been started, or what the origin and cause are. Specifically right now, DNR investigators here, and each of our fire jurisdictions have trained fire investigators that we work closely with. Spokane County has several detectives who have also been trained to investigate these fires, and we're looking into all of them.
So it sounds like the Autumn Lane fire is the one that I'm hearing some concern right now. Are there still homes burning the Old Trails fire or the Fairview fire?
Leave it up to the fire team to answer that.
You're accurate that Autumn Lane is our primary concern right now. Fire was very active last night. It's active again this morning. Our focus, and as I stated earlier, we're still in our firefight, it's because we're in a firefight in Autumn Lane. We're moving resources over there for structure protection. We've had an overwhelming amount of aerial assets available to us on the ridge lines that are helping out. We've got some of our best firefighters on the ground, our hotshots, that are in there as well. Every resource that we have available, we're moving to that section. But I'll also remind you, we still have 2 large fire footprints with active fire interior to them, and the last thing we want to do is have a burned home and the embers of that home ignite a neighbor. And so we're in the process of trying to cover all those bases at the same time.
Does that mean structure protection that's really happening with Old Trails and Fairview?
Yep, structure protection is our primary mission, to try to protect those structures after we've already evacuated the folks.
And how many structures are under threat right now, especially?
It's over 10,000. It's in the tens of thousands that are threatened. Now that's a big box. But we operate in large boxes for safety, and it also gives us ample opportunity for planning purposes as we're looking out 3, 4, 5 days ahead.
With the structures that have burned, the 700, is there any breakdown between the 3 different fires or areas where that has happened?
Hey, I think not specifically right now, but we all know that the primary driver of that fire was the initial fire that came off the hill. We've been able to get into some of those neighborhoods, but we've got our focus has really been this active firefight that's occurred all over the landscape, specifically in Autumn Acres.
And
idea how many evacuees there are right now? Is it those 60,000 or more?
So I'll tell you what I know. I'd also defer to maybe the mayor or Red Cross, but the numbers I have are 67,000 people are under evacuation. Now, did all of them leave? Maybe not necessarily. But to the sheriff's point, a Herculean effort occurred the other day with 60,000 people being moved without injury. That is phenomenal. That is phenomenal.
Could you rank the fires from worst to least worst, just for perspective? And then also, was there any like pre-treatment work done on any of those fire start locations?
Won't be able to answer the second part of your question, but to the first part, they're all bad. I'm not going to rank them. People have lost their homes. They've lost their livelihoods. They've lost family memories. And whether you're in one fire or the other, it really doesn't matter.
As far as extensiveness and how many homes are, I guess, estimated to be lost in each fire?
I'd like to give it a few days before we lay all of that out. We've still got quite a bit of work to do.
I can speak to treatments.
Yep.
Speaking to the question about work prior to fire season, I can't speak right now specifically to which areas were treated, but the state has invested a record amount of funding in forest health, specifically things like fuels reduction to reduce the spread of fire, prescribed burns that slow the spread of fire, the creation of fire breaks, and we prioritize that work in ways that are designed to protect high-value assets. So I suspect that we have done some work in these communities designed to try to slow the spread of fire. And throughout the state, we have lots of examples, and we can look for some in this community where that work has paid dividends, where fire slows down as it enters a section of forest that has been treated with fuels reduction prescribed burns. That's the kind of preparation that's so important here. So the Department of Natural Resources can get you more specifics, but it would not surprise me if some of that work was in this community.
Thank you. We're going to cut it there. I'm sure some of the local elected officials and fire staff would be around for stand-up